Year. This is our first episode of 2023, and I'm a little selfish in having this guest on. Full disclosure, we connected first at the Texas Hemp Summit, which took place last year in 2022. We were on a panel together, and y'all know me, I am just a sponge. And so when I'm sitting next to people who know a thing or two, in this case, know a lot of things about a subject that is so imperative and so important to helping brands, especially cannabis brands, find success online, my ears perk up. So we are joined today by Max. He is the CEO and founder of dopeseo.com. And if you haven't guessed it, we're going to be talking all about SEO, all about web content, marketing, etc. So welcome, Max, to the show. And I'm really excited to connect with you again. And like I said, dive into this topic, which I know our listeners are eager to hear as well.
Absolutely. Happy New Year and great to be here. And I'm very excited to be your first guest of the 2023. So
Me too. I think I've had a lot of people, again, my listeners know I come from a technical background, a technical marketing background, but I think there's so much when it comes to technical marketing and content marketing that, full transparency, like I didn't really excel in SEO. And so it's like something that I know tangentially about. I know how to write content. I know how to use certain keywords, but it's still such a black hole for me. And then especially with the filter of like cannabis marketing and cannabis SEO and ranking and Google and search engine optimization, which is, if you don't know what SEO stands for, listeners. But I want to kind of start from learning a little bit more about you and your background. Like, how long have you been in the SEO game? How did you get into it? What fascinates you about it? And like, what was the decision to be like, I'm going to take this experience and I'm going to now apply it to the cannabis space? Because I think we all can express, and I'm sure you can relate to doing it for your clients and you being in the space yourself, and the listeners know it's a fucking hard life out there to be a cannabis brand online. So with that said, I just want to know more about you. How'd you get started and why cannabis?
um okay, so do you want the short version or the really like in-depth
I
kind of
want
story?
the in-depth kind of story because I think it's important for people to understand, the different steps that you, my guests, take to end up like here presently right now doing
Okay.
what you're doing.
Well, this is I have a really interesting story with this.
Share it.
So my background actually, like, all right, so I'm a Jersey native. I grew up I'm celebrating, I just turned 44, turning 45 this year. And I grew up in the 80s, 90s of East Coast hip hop, weed culture, at the highlight of it all. So um, I eventually left Jersey after in like 2001, 2000, yeah, 2001, just because everybody around me was going to jail, and I had an opportunity to get out and kind of like recreate myself. And I took it because I was like, if I have to leave, I'm too pretty for jail, and I'm
Of course.
I'm
Humble.
just totally no. That was like my logical reasoning on it. It's not like I can't do the time. It was more like I'm just too pretty for jail, and I don't want to be like one of these 25th hour Ed Norton scenes where I'm like, before I go in, I need you to like
Yeah, hell no. You're
mess
like,
me up.
let's make a left stage right now.
Yeah, let's just like go and recreate ourselves. So I ended up getting into this. It's a really weird thing, but I ended up doing door-to-door sales for like 15 years, and I transitioned from like door-to-door business to business marketing to digital marketing because it was obvious. Like when I started, in the early 2000s, the internet wasn't that prevalent. Google Maps wasn't that prevalent. Not everybody there was no Facebook, there was no whatever, there was no Google Maps, there were no online reviews. You could just sell stuff and, people just took you at your word. And then the internet happened and our business was phasing out really super quick. And then I started looking into how to make money online because I was like, I don't want to talk to 100 people a day, every day, start at zero every day, and have to train and motivate people to do this every day for full commission. It was cool when I was in my 20s. But like as I grew up and started having children and back problems,
Pain is
and
cruel.
yeah, and like you kind of age, I was like, I need something a little bit better, a little more stable. So I actually started. I took what I was doing, you know, business to business, and I just started doing it online. I actually, and I created, just because I have a hard time selling something if I don't believe in it, and I have a hard time pitching anything or even. So I was like, I need to get results for myself first before I can even like do this. So I started this online training course, and in like 2015, 2016, I did this whole YouTube series of like how to sell art online, and I actually launched the course. And my just from YouTube traffic, I made like my first $10,000 online,
Right
just because
on.
I had. And I think some of those videos are still up. If you Google like how to sell art online, like 2015, 2016 or whatever, like I had a course, and it's me, much younger, much paler, different, whatever. But I mean, but it was just like raw and just like, I'm like, hey, this is how you do it. This is how you sell. This is whatever. And people like paid for it. And I was like, this is cool. I can do this, because I had like constant lead gen, constant whatever. And then I just went into digital marketing. In 2018, I was hired on by the founders of Plain Jane to actually come in and help them with their SEO. And we took them from, we meaning me, because there's always like me, myself, and I. There's like three different personalities to myself that when I refer to we.
Well, it sounds good to be like, I have a team. It's we when you're like
Yeah.
selling something. It's like, it's
No,
just me
well,
doing.
back then it was just me, you know. Like, and now there's a team. But we took them from 600,000 to like 4.2 million in online sales.
Right on.
I mean, it was just a really cool timeline of stuff, to where like within the first 30 days of them hiring me on, I came in, I did some optimization, and like there's like an actual email thread between me and Evan where it's like, from what you've done already, you've helped us make an extra $1,000 a day online.
Wow.
And like we're on track to do an extra million because of you, whatever. And then, you know, so and this was like right after the Farm Bill passed. This was like when hemp and CBD, and there was still this whole like, what is CBD? And like nobody knew what CBD was. So there was this whole educational push to the marketing aspect. There was this whole like, no, it's not weed, it's CBD, and it's not. Yeah, I mean, like, you know, it's 2023 now, 5 years later. I'm pretty sure everybody knows what CBD is, and we're just generally familiar with it. Whereas, like, you know, 4 or 5 years ago, people were like, CBD, that's weed.
Yeah.
That's the, you know,
It required a lot more education in those formative years that now, yes, more or less, there's people who are like understanding what it is. I did have a quick like question to interject though, given just what you explained. One, can you just like highlight what Plain Jane sells? Because I am curious. I think when you're talking about SEO and online, there is a delineation between like accessories and CBD products versus obviously like marijuana products. And then the second part to the question is, do you think brands in the space today can see the same type of success with SEO, or is it more like you're just like, you need SEO because you have to play the game because
SEO
it's so competitive?
It's both. So Plain Jane, they still are. They're a hemp company. I mean, they sell CBD, CBG flower. They were one of the first, they were like one of the big, the self-started kind of like smaller woman-owned CBD hemp flower businesses. Like they sold flower. They didn't do a lot of. When they started off, it wasn't a lot of oil. It wasn't a lot of gummies. It was flower. It was, you'd buy big bags of.
So that's kind of radical to point out, though, because I think, again, my very limited but curious knowledge is, depending on what you're selling, obviously certain platforms or keywords or audiences, it's a little bit more difficult. So the fact that they were able to get that much growth, you were able to help them see that much growth in that early time period when the Farm Bill is passing for flower is really remarkable. But now obviously you just touched on it. To me, it's like really difficult to like rank for, let's say, CBD or hemp flower right now.
If you're brand new, absolutely. Yeah, no, we got in, and this is what's, I mean, if you want to get technical, they still, you know, if you think about how, here we go, let's go super nerdy. Exact match, partial match domain authority. They never had like Plain Jane CBD or Plain Jane hemp or Plain Jane whatever. It was originally, it was uh, oh my God, I forgot the original URL was like Triplane Jane, right?
Okay.
And then when they got bought out, they the guys that bought them out bought plainjane.com. But there was never like plainjanecbd.com or plainjanehemp.com. It was always just brand name only.com. So that was like a whole other thing that we're generally speaking, like if you see most companies, there's like brand name plus product.com. You know what I mean? It's like rweed.com or like rcbd.com or something hemp or something flower in there. So it was essentially like everybody that was on page one was like such and such hemp, such and such weed, such and such flower, such and such CBD.
Because it was in their domain name, helping give authority to boost it up in search rankings.
Yeah, and they just built the brand name. And I think a lot of the marketing that came into that was just like, hey, we're not a big corporation, we're not a big, like big money, commercially backed like Chad and Brad company coming in here. We're just like, we're essentially like two stoners that just really like weed and want to be socially conscious and equitable and, pay attention to everything else that's going on in the world versus just like, hey, buy our flower.
Yeah.
Because we're going to make a bunch of like really terrible fake medical claims and whatever. And it's going to help you with sex and your erection and your, and
COVID
and your COVID and your health and your whatever. It was a really smart play, and actually, I really and like literally like 2-3 of the people that were on the initial team that were brought in actually came over and transitioned over to my company when.
Oh hell yeah.
So it actually like I built a lot of good foundations there, and like when they got sold, we all kind of got dumped, and I was like, why don't we just do this for ourselves? Like, come listen, just follow me. I will run point on this, and I will make sure that we're making money. And so a couple of the writers, the social media manager and myself, like I just kind of like reached out to them. I was like, hey, we're really good. Do you want to help with this? And they're like, oh yeah, definitely. I was like, okay, cool. Let's just do it then. So
that's very cool though, because obviously I think a lot of opportunity comes out of like necessity and need. And you had a great client, but like you said, which I'm sure the listeners also are not foreign with hearing. I mean, right now there's a lot of hiring and firing in the cannabis industry.
Massive.
So it's like, how do you as a brand build stability? And like for me representing a CBD brand, which to your kind of point and acknowledgement, our brand name is Restart, but our domain is Restart CBD. So it's like, yes, we want to build the brand, but you also want to build a little bit of that, which I don't think we did intentionally. Again, I'm not like, oh, I was so smart, I knew to do this. It was just like, people don't know. We launched in 2018 too. So it's like, people didn't know at the time what the FCBD, really CBD was. So it's like, you had to say I'm Restart CBD.
Right.
To create some sort of, familiarity, or at least like, I've kind of vaguely heard this word. Let me go shop with those people because it's in their name.
Right.
But to be able to then go build a business where you're helping other brands try to navigate that, because it is so competitive online right now. And so I'm curious now to like hear a little bit from your experience and understanding, obviously like traditional SEO versus cannabis SEO. I think there's some parity, but at the same time, from what I've understood, and maybe it's changed again, I don't know like fully. So like that's where you're the expert, but like, can you do Google ads, and what does that look like where you can buy the keywords so you can have better ranking, which you can obviously do if you're not a restricted brand in the cannabis space. And so maybe you can do it in cannabis, but there's like maybe some like backwards ways about doing it. And so it's just like, kind of like give us like the pulse on, okay, I'm a cannabis brand, I want to be online. Let's say they don't even want to rank nationally. They just want to rank locally. In their geolocation. I know you're in Dallas, so they want to rank in Dallas. What are their options for SEO in particular?
So here's here we go. Let's do a master class here.
Yes.
So essentially, if you're a local business and you have a storefront, I highly recommend. Well, for one, if you're a local business and you're a local business only, I do recommend getting a storefront. Just because you can have a Google Maps listing if it's just you, even if it's just you sitting there behind your counter in your little 10 by 10 bodega somewhere. get the storefront, because at least you can show up on Google Maps. At least you can show up on Apple Maps. At least you can show up on, because you got to realize like this wonderful brick here that we all walk around and carry. It has a GPS tracker on it. Unless you turn off unless you set it to airplane mode, like we did right before the podcast, it's going to show you what's close to you, right? So if you're looking for something like CBD near me, or like Delta 8 or flower or pre-rolls or whatever, or even if you're running a dispensary or and you're not in Texas and you actually are in a state where people get it and they realize that like, hey, it's not, that's a whole other conversation I'm not getting into. So but if you're anywhere bordering Texas or like the rest of the country where people are like, hey, it's not gonna
it's normal.
It's normal and it's not bad and whatever. Getting a Google Maps listing is probably one of the best things you could ever do, just because it will allow you to show up from a near me perspective.
And that's just by having the listing. Like there's nothing extra that brands have to do. A clarifying question on that, because
you do have to optimize. You do have to optimize your listing.
Sure, which we can get into to the degree that you want to get into. But a clarifying question, because we've kind of come across this. Like everybody knows about Google. Like, yay, we're on Google Maps. We're on Yelp. But then there was kind of like these, I mean, you mentioned like Apple Maps as well, but then there's like Bing, there's like Yahoo, there's all these other search engines that I feel like people are sometimes like promoting, like, you got to be on all of them, like Angie or like Blue Book or whatever. And I'm like, who's the fuck on that? But
here's the thing. So it's kind of like, you want to have a listing on there. Don't expect anything to happen from it.
Sure, just to check the box of, and
just
have
to
the
check the boxes. Yeah, just to check the boxes to be like, hey, I also read your terms and services and conditions before I did whatever. Just to have it, because for one, if it's yours, you claim it, it's yours. Nobody else can have it. For two, to avoid a competitor coming in and claiming it for you, and then potentially claiming your traffic. Because there are some people. You still have people that use their default browsers. There are some apps that will instantaneously open in Apple Maps or open in Google Maps or open in, Waze or whatever. Yeah. So like, you want to make sure that you have all of those covered. Trust me, Google and Apple Maps are going to be your main traffic sources. But the fact is that if you're showing up on those, I had side note, I had a really interesting meeting a couple weeks ago. I flew to New Jersey and New York, and I had a meeting with a weed delivery company out there. And I'm talking about a weed delivery company that's doing probably 100 deliveries a day. Yeah, in this great state of New Jersey, where I'm from. And they did everything wrong, and they were still doing 100 deliveries a day.
Can you explain what they were doing wrong?
Oh, they didn't show up for anything other than their brand name. But if you knew about them, and I mean, you're talking a delivery service that has over 2,000 Google reviews for weed delivery that isn't technically legal.
So just not even optimized, like
not even
have
optimized.
Anything like set up for themselves. They're just kind of like word of mouth. You find us.
Oh, it's total word of mouth, total whatever. But they had like 200 or like 2,000 Google, like 5-star Google reviews for like, these guys deliver the best weed ever. And I'm sitting there talking to the guy. He's like, is this legal here? He's like, well, kind of. But we're I was like,
best answer ever. Like, no, but are you
best answer?
Great.
I was like, do you care? He's like, no. I was like, okay. As long as if you're, because you're essentially, we're having this conversation to where you're really going to be in front of a bunch of people.
Well, is that why they brought you in, was to help optimize it? So
yeah.
That they could be in front of more people?
Yeah. He's like, I want to get it back to where it was. I was like, all right, are you ready to literally put a target on you? Because that's what happens when we come in and optimize you. And this is what I want to have these conversations for, because I've had plenty of people where it's like, I'm doing this thing. I was like, is this legal in your state? Because for one, I want to make sure that from a safety standpoint on my end as a marketer, that it's like, hey, I just want to make sure I'm not promoting something that's going to get somebody knocking on my door, because that's.
Can you get in trouble for the clients potentially through anything
that's
with the FTC?
Knock on wood, because we're not actually touching anything, and we're just marketing. We're just actually just coming into market. I'm not an attorney, but I did speak to one, and they were like, as long as you're not actually doing anything, you should be okay. I was like, okay, because we're just coming in and essentially just helping to advertise. We're a marketing company, and we're not actually doing any transactional things. But yeah, so
Like
essentially,
growth is good for everybody. As long
growth
as
is
I'm
good for
not
everyone.
touching
I
the
mean,
plant.
you know, it was a weird thing because he's like, I want to pay you in cash. And I was like, that's another interesting thing because it's a cash only business because they can't take credit cards. I was like, oh, this is going to be so weird. It's going to be like that movie Blow where I'm like jumping on a plane every month to pick up a suitcase full of money.
This undisclosed location.
Undisclosed location. I'm like, I got to fly to Jersey and I can't carry a gun. And like, you know, there's just like all this weird stuff. I was like, this is like a weird kind of checklist of like, who do I need to call to for security? And,
I appreciate it because it's a reality of the industry to some extent. I mean, it's like, this is still how people are doing business.
Yeah, but this is like a conversation I have like maybe once a month.
Which is weird though, because obviously you are doing like your business is digital.
Yeah.
But
our
still
clients,
so much physical that
there's
has
still so
to be
much
done.
physical that has to be done. And it's essentially because like you can't take credit cards, you can't do like there's still like a lot of restrictions on a lot of things. So it's like, how does the money flow for some people? And when like you're a cash only delivery business, it's like, oh, that's an interesting thing. Or it's like, do you claim 100 deliveries a day in cash at like an average of 100, 150 bucks an order, you know? And then it's like, where does that money? And then I was just like, I don't even know, bro.
Yeah, like I'm just doing SEO,
Yeah, I'm just doing digital marketing. I'm not going to try to help you clean your money because this is like a whole other. This is where you start getting into conspiracy stuff.
Shit.
You know what I mean? But in regards to and this is live, so yeah, like literally, I think I just put another watch list thing on myself for again, but because that's just what we do in our space. But initially, like if you're a local business and you're in a local location, get a maps listing. The other thing that you have to do is honestly own your website, own your domain, own all your brand stuff that you can possibly own, and make sure that you own it. You know, not your marketing company, because that's a whole other conversation to have about like, oh, I've had so many horror stories to where people, it's like we hired this marketing company and they owned our domain. They owned our socials. They owned we've done some amazing.
Those people exist that they just like have that trust with these agencies.
No, I mean, it's not even trust. It's
they just don't know any better, and it's like, okay, I got you. Yeah,
naivete or just like, well, I don't know what I'm doing. You guys know what you're doing, so yeah, we trust you. We're paying you, and then I'm going through, and I'm like, so these guys have been billing you for 5 years now. Haven't done an update on your website in 5 years, haven't done anything for you really in 5 years, but they own all of your digital assets under their name. And like your emails are set up under their email stuff. Their socials are owned, like your socials are run and managed by the marketing company that you hired. And you don't even have access to this. You don't even know where your domain is registered. Yeah, we've done some really interesting things this last year in regards to like, okay, let's just go. What is it? What did we start calling them? They were like just real down and dirty snatch and grabs from other companies to where it's like, we've got to get you off their platform. So we're just going to do an emergency, like seek and destroy mission on them to take
all the passwords out and
transfer
like
literally
over.
in like less than 24 hours, you know, because it's like, okay, so yeah, because like then if you don't pay us,
tip them off.
Yeah, because some of these guys, like if they own all of your stuff and you stop paying them, they will shut your stuff down. Yeah, exactly. It's like a hostage situation to where we're coming in and essentially like rescuing a client from another agency. So that's happened a few times this past year to where it's like we're doing hostage negotiations to where it's like give our clients back their assets. Meanwhile, like one of the guys out there with the loudspeaker, like, don't jump. And then like everybody else is coming in through the back door, like literally pulling people out of the building, rescuing websites and social media. Kind of like, you know,
and
then
it's scary though, because it's like, yeah, you want to own those things. Just
so
like from a brand perspective, like you just want to own your own
assets,
like you said.
Yeah, I don't care how nice somebody is. And this is the whole thing. I don't want to own your hosting. I don't want to own your domain. I don't want to own your social. I don't want to own anything. I want you to own it. I want you to be it's here you go, child. Like, listen, this is your toy. You're responsible for your toy. If you break your toy, I'm going to show you how to maintain. We're gonna help you make it a better Lego set.
Yeah.
But this is your Lego set. I'm not going to keep it on my shelf like it's yours. We're gonna help you build the best Lego set you've ever had, but like
I
take
have
care
a
of it.
question on like these assets. I'm just thinking out loud and going off of kind of what we were talking about in the initial conversation. Does it benefit brands to have like 10 domains that are versions of their brand and point it to your site?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not talking about like setting up websites, but just
No.
like pointing more
Yeah.
domains to your site.
It
That
does.
helps in Google or
All right.
ranking.
So let's just put from a brand standpoint. I can tell you this from Plain Jane. What we saw where people were buying like plainjanehemp.com and then like claiming to be the same brand.
Sure. So just to protect your own brand, I
Yeah.
understand that, but I'm
So
thinking of like, how do I'm a brand. Like, how do I boost my ranking in these search engines?
oh well, that's on page. That's link building. That's content. That's guest posts. That's there's a
Got
lot
it.
that
So the
needs to be done behind
domains
the
don't
scenes.
necessarily aid in
No.
boosting. It's
Well, I
more
mean,
from a
if you
brand perspective.
yeah, from a brand perspective, you got to think about this in a lot of different ways, right? Like, so the industry right now, cannabis, CBD, Delta 8, like everything, Delta 9, live resin, THCO, HHC, like all these little renditions, all these new, it's weed, So, the green space, it's getting more and more competitive. There's more people coming in here. There's more people that have like a dollar and a dream getting involved, and then but you've got your dollar and a dream folks versus I've got millions and millions and millions of dollars from these commercial corporate backers and big banks and other brands that literally flip every 6 months, who do everything wrong, do everything against the grain, but they've made millions of dollars and they know like, hey, we're going to run this brand for 6 months and we're going to get flagged and then we're just going to repackage and repurpose and do it again 6 months again. And if you go to any of these expos or these trade shows or things like this, you see them, you're like, hey, weren't you just a different brand
I've
6 months ago?
speculated that goes on, but like people sometimes don't believe me, and I'm like,
Oh, it happens.
yes,
It happens more than you believe. And I've seen it. One of our first clients was one of those companies, and we just parted ways. I was like, ethically, I can't work with you guys. Like, this is just shady as all hell because you're doing everything wrong, knowing you're doing everything wrong, knowing that you're going to get takedown notices, knowing that you're going to get like some really bad feedback, but you're going to make a couple million, and out of that couple million, you're going to take a
reinvest it,
percentage
and
and just not even reinvest, just repackage.
sure,
You're just going to repackage, rebuild a new website, rebox everything, same products, new stickers, and then
for
all of a sudden it's
consumers.
yeah, and it happens. It happens more often than not. So from a digital marketing SEO standpoint, I think one of the best things that anybody can actually do is you want to get here we go. Let's get nerdy. So
Get nerdy.
okay, so this is kind of what we figured out is that if you try to get into this and you go for I want to rank for I get a lot of people that will we want to rank for the best CBD for women in their 40s with knee pain or whatever, and I'm like, nobody's searching for that. And
Like
for one, you
super
can't make
specific.
super specific, but it's also like you can't make health claims like that. You can't like that was one of the things we were discussing on the panel. Like you can't just be like my CBD is going to help you with your pain. Like you can't. What you can do though is build a good brand following. What you can do is build a good brand awareness campaign. What you can do is do something kind of a little more grassroots to where it's like social proof. Because I think social proof in and of itself, one of the as crappy as terrible as COVID showed from a digital marketing e-com standpoint, e-commerce sales went through the roof once COVID hit, whether it was the grocery shopping people or the Amazon shopping or the, I'm ordering my alcohol to be delivered to my front door, to I'm ordering my weed and my CBD and my pre-rolls and my gummies to my front door. I don't even know what the actual percentage was, but I think it was like a 6,000%, like 10,000% jump in e-commerce sales. One of the things that happened was we got really used to reading reviews, and we got really used to doing research on companies before we started purchasing online. And I think a lot of times what people come into this is that, and I've had this conversation with so many people, whether we worked together or we didn't work together. And a lot of times it's just like, well, my brand is the best. I was like, well, nobody knows, like that's great. Your brand is the best. You think it's the best thing. I'm glad your mom really likes it. I'm glad your girlfriend really likes it. Your boyfriend really likes it. Your kids really like it. Your husband, whoever. Yeah, your neighbors really like it. Who else knows about it? Well, that's why we're talking to you. I was like, well, if you only have 5 words on your website that says we're the best CBD company out there, and there's no story behind it, and there's no lab tests, and there's no proof, and there's no articles, but also there's no third party, reviews, you're missing out. You're missing the boat. The cool thing is that like with a lot of the stuff that you can ship across state lines, that's not THC above the 3%. You know what I mean? Like you can have, I think one of the smartest things we ever did actually was start doing influencer marketing, start doing repurposable influencer marketing, third-party reviews, unboxing videos, review videos to where you're sending products to people. You're having people do stuff. If you're doing some sort of pop-up, if you're doing some sort of event, if you're doing some sort of, I know companies that literally got starting off showing up at farmers markets and weird little, pop-up events and things like that, and just had a table in a booth where they had their products and they were selling them. And that's how they started bankrolling their business, And so I'm like, okay, so you did this. Where's the footage? Where's the reviews? Where are the people tasting your stuff? Where are the people say, I talked to all these people, they really loved it. I was like, great. Where's the footage?
Yeah, what do you have to show for it?
Where's the review? Where's that beyond you telling me how great it was? It's like me saying, I went to this restaurant, the food was amazing. What was the name of it? I don't remember. What did you order? I forget. What did it taste like? Oh, I forgot to take a picture. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, absolutely.
Like you need that social proof, and because I think, this is where, just knowing this, because it is becoming a very competitive space. It's kind of like the Coke versus Pepsi versus everything else. It's essentially going to be like the McDonald's versus Burger King versus this versus that versus Whataburger versus In-N-Out versus the one local shop that you're like, these guys really care, and I'm willing to pay a couple extra more bucks because I'm supporting a locally run business, but they have really good food. And it's the same thing when it comes to to hemp products, to CBD products, to whatever, to where it's like you can be the bottom dollar person, or you can be a little bit more niche. You can be a little bit more, because you get a lot of people. It's like, well, we want to be this luxury brand that only sells to top dollar people and whatever. Well, guess what? The people that buy luxury brands don't buy just because you say you're a luxury brand. They buy because other people say it's a luxury brand and they're willing to put their faith and their money and their, like you have to have something behind that for somebody to say, oh, okay, their brand, everything is on point and it looks like a luxury brand. It looks like this should be a $50 bottle of gummies versus a $20, bag of gummies. This looks like a $10 bar of an edible versus the $2, whatever. This looks like a $40 vape versus a $10 vape. Because the people that are the reviews that I'm seeing all justify the expense, all justify the investment, all justify the cost. So I think with any marketing coming in, if you're a brand new company, do some pop-ups, do some events, do some stuff, get footage, get testimonials, get live recordings of people, A, trying your products, B, like reviewing your products, C, saying it's great. And then, because that kind of stuff, this goes back to me getting started on YouTube years ago. My background was in sales, right? And I think a lot of times with companies, look, when you started your business, before anybody knew about Restart, before anybody knew about Shayda, right? You had to go and talk to people. Now you have a podcast, you've got a YouTube, you've got this. Guess what? Each one of those pieces of content is a repurposable piece of content that does the selling for you, to where now you don't even need to introduce yourself half the time. They're like, Shayda, I've watched all your stuff, right? And it's the same thing for brands. The same way you built your business is the same way a lot of these companies need to build their business, where it's like you have all this. We have this wonderful piece of technology here that records better quality footage than a $10,000 camera from 10 years ago.
Facts.
All you got to do is literally, it's like, hey, we're doing this event. Would you mind trying this? And can I record you? And if you like it, can you give me a testimonial? Can you say something about this? That's social proof. That's something, because if I watch something, this is the thing. I don't trust brands that have 5,000 5-star reviews, because it's fake, right? Like, there's always going to be somebody that doesn't like what you're doing. It doesn't, it tasted kind of funny. It tasted like weed. It didn't get me as high as they say it was going to. There's always going to be some. They didn't open. They were supposed to close at 9, and I showed up at 8:59, and they kicked me out of the store. So I'm not a fan. I'm never going there again. I can't believe they. There's always going to be somebody that hates on you.
Yeah, for sure.
So look, that's fine. I'm fully aware. Like, there's plenty of people already that don't like us and don't like what we're doing and don't like me in general, just because these are like what we're talking about here. This is. If you plan on working with me, this is like the reality check that I have to give to people sometimes, to where they're like, I've got a $500 budget. I was like, you should not give that to me, because that's essentially what I'm going to charge you to talk to you for an hour. What you should do, take that $500, go find an event, go get a banner, go to Staples, go get a paper banner. You don't need a big vinyl one. Get some business card, show up and take some footage, and then start repurposing it. And then when you actually start getting consistent sales coming in, then we can help you, because I'm going to burn through $500 on a budget so fast. Like, I
appreciate that. Yeah.
You can't, like, that's like, come on, what am I going to do? Write you a blog post and look at your website? Like, and then there is
so much that you have to invest in that I don't think people really fully realize when it comes to all these things you're talking about. And it's like, yes, there has to be a little bit of like things that you are doing. And I usually refer to it as like low hanging fruit. And I love that you brought up the smartphone device, because people always ask me like, well, what's the best equipment and how do I record these videos? And I'm like, you don't need a fucking, $500 microphone or $5,000 camera. It's like, you have an iPhone, point it in the direction, ask the question. And if you're not comfortable, hopefully someone on your team is, to start doing some of this guerrilla marketing to give yourself the foundation, which is something I kind of want to turn and ask you a little bit now too, because especially with the podcast, there's obviously, a lot of listeners who want to get in the industry. They're not in the industry yet, or maybe they work for a brand and they want to start their own brand. And it's like really overwhelming. And I think you and I have resonated with each other because we're both just like truth tellers. Like, I'm gonna be the first person that's like, I don't give a shit that you think your product is differentiating. Like, prove it to me and talk to me in a year once you've generated some sales and brand following, and then I'll pay attention to you. Like,
exactly.
It blows my mind. People are like, no, mine's the best. And I'm like, you could have maybe gotten away with that 5 years ago, but 2023, it's not gonna fly. So on the topic of all of this, like, I'm just curious, especially kind of the context of these brands who are kind of, fizzing out, they're exhausting the market, they're making all their money, they're then taking that money and transitioning into new products. Is it easier for a new brand presently, or for a brand that's already existed and has some sort of brand equity to like kind of grow in the space? Both. Like, I'm just curious from your perspective. If
I think this space hasn't even hit the saturation point yet. I think
that's good to know.
Yeah, no. If anything, there's still so much room to play in. And the other thing is that so big brands, and this is. Oh, how much do I want to reveal here? So just by the way, I did launch a podcast at the end of like last month, because just like talking about this kind of stuff. I spent
documenting it. Like you said, you're having these conversations. You might as well put it somewhere. And
and I needed, like, I flew to New York, and I spent like 5-6 days like essentially locked in my business partner's apartment. in Rochester, New York. It was snowing outside. Like I was like, we're going to the supermarket, we're buying food, and we're just gonna work. And we literally just did a grind session for like 6 days straight. Where
It's amazing.
I don't know why I packed so many clothes because I was essentially wearing the same outfit for like 4 days straight. And I was like, oh my God, like, why is my shirt so stained? I was like, oh, you know what I mean? Like, what are these like?
What day is it? How long have I been down here?
It essentially was. But this is the thing. Like, we were doing product photos, building funnels, building websites, optimizing stuff for people. And it's just like, you know, I like working in a think tank to where it's like you get some creative people together and it's just like you're bouncing ideas off of each other. Because this is, you know, one of the other things too is that like because now we're living in a digital world, like, hey, you can, you know, I'm shooting this from my apartment, you know, like I've got a computer, I got this, I got the light, I got the mic, whatever. But there's nothing better than like getting together with some people and like, you know, and that's why like the Texas hemp thing was so cool because I was like, oh, this is good. Like my brain is firing
Stimulating
again.
with other people in the same kind of
stimulation
mentality.
with people in the same thing. So yeah, is it easier for you can compete with big brands as long as you differentiate yourself, as long as you're aware of your brand, as long as you have full clarity on who your client or your target audience is. I think one of the first we did our first event. The first event I went to last year was the Buy Weed from Women event in Vegas. The first like event that I had a booth at was the Lucky Leaf show in Albuquerque of last year, right? And the first woman that came up to me, literally, why do I need somebody like you if I have a product that everybody wants to buy? And I was like, you know, I don't know. That's a really good question, you know?
$1 million question.
I mean, I was just like, that's a really good question. I don't know why you need a company like mine to sell weed in a state where it's about to be legal. And, you know, why would you need somebody like me? She's like, yeah, because I've got a dispensary license and I'm the only person that has a dispensary in 20 miles because I work for the city and nobody can open a dispensary in the whole city except for me. I was like, that's cool. She's like, yeah, I'm going to buy all these billboards off the highway. I was like, that's cool. I was like, so do you have a website? She's like, what? I was like, you know, when you buy these billboards and you tell people where to go, are they going to find you on Google Maps or Apple Maps or like look you up on your website? She's like, oh, no, because we don't have that yet. I was like, she's like, well, we have a Facebook page. I was like, that's cool. Do you know if THC isn't really like terms of service, like
friendly on Facebook?
Terms of service friendly on Facebook. And odds are you're going to get your Facebook page shut down. She's like, what? I was like, so here's the thing, like before you buy the billboard and before you send the, hey, weed next exit sign off the whole thing, because guess what? If I'm driving down the highway and the only dispensary is 20 miles in either direction from where you are and you don't show up on Apple Maps or Google Maps or your website doesn't show up or the name of your business doesn't show up and they just go weed near me or dispensary near me, Google Maps is going to take them 20 miles in either direction, and they're going to zoom right by you, and your $10,000 billboard now just became an advertisement for your competitors. So that was the
rude awakening.
So do you guys want to come over for dinner? I want you to meet my husband so we can talk about this. This is like, and I was like, okay, so like I'm not, you know, this was I was like, oh, so nobody knows what they're doing, but also like, oh, we're so necessary for this industry right now, just for the initial awareness. So back to your initial question though, but can small brands compete with big brands? Absolutely. You just got to get super clear on who you're marketing to, and you got to get super clear on who you're messaging to, and you have to be super clear on, you know, like what are you trying to get out of this? And like, who are you trying to connect with? Because there's a very big difference in this space. If you're doing CBD, there's the whole health and wellness aspect. And then there's the, I just want to get baked aspect of this business as well. And there is a gray area in between, but 9 times out of 10, it's going to teeter totter on one end, you know? And then even if hey, I just want to get stoned aspect of like, I just want to get stoned without being stoned, or I want to get baked without being baked, or I just want to feel relaxed, or, you know, and then you get your super sativa versus indica versus I'm a grower and I've been in the industry for however many years, technical people that want to sit there and talk to you about the pH levels of your soil. To you know
I
what
got
I'm
a
talking
YouTube
about.
channel for that. You can
Yeah,
watch all my
exactly.
videos and be talking about it.
Dude, it's crazy. Like like my brain goes, what? I don't. Do you want to sell this stuff or not? You know what I mean? Because like
Yeah.
this is not the thing that like it's kind of like when we were at the Texas hemp thing. I'm like, oh man, you guys are all really smart, but you don't know how to sell any of this because you're just talking all this data nonsense now that generally does not influence the impulse aspect of a sale.
But it's
One
like, yeah,
bit.
do you have a plan to go to market? And all these people are like, I got a product I want to sell. And I'm like, yeah, but who are you
Yeah.
selling to? Like you said, do you know who your customer is and how you're going to get your product to that customer? And it's such a radical idea because people, especially in Texas, as you know, they're like, which is kind of my whole hill I feel like I'm going to die on right now, especially going into the 88th legislative session. I just published an article on a riff of a tangent I started at the hemp summit saying if Texas legalized tomorrow, who would get licenses? Considering medical marijuana is vertical integrated, has only 3 licenses, 2 are in operation, and you got all these thousands of hemp people who are like, I'm going to sell weed. I'm like, are you? Are you going to sell weed? Do you know how you're going to get that license? And then even if you get the license, do you know how you're going to sell your products to, I think medical marijuana in Texas, I saw in the latest article, like 40,000 patients. We don't need thousands of licenses for 40,000 patients. And so obviously our program has a lot of
but also no from I saw some interesting stuff come across my email chat phone text thing where
something.
it's just something, you got so many channels.
The Batmobile, the Bat phone.
Yeah, the red phone, the secret emergency phone.
Yeah, the
no,
sparks
I
in the
saw
sky.
I saw something interesting with the like they're actually because there is no technical card in
Right.
Texas.
It's a prescription.
Yeah, but I think that they're actually considering doing a real card, and they're doing some. I'll send it to you. I'll
because then you
it.
would get reciprocity, at least recognizing it as a true medical program, which I think is part of the Achilles heel to our program today. And I'm also a big believer that you're not going to see recreation until you see a better medical program, and medical is capped at 1%, hemp is at 0.3%. But then that gets into the 88th legislative sessions coming up. You're going to have marijuana bills trying to improve that program. And you better believe there's already bills being introduced to try to attack Delta 8 and hemp-derived Delta 9. So to me, I'm kind of like, let's get popcorn. Let's see what the fuck's going to happen, because those are all very real things that then impact your operation, just as a Texas brand. I know other states like Tennessee is dealing with it because there's the federal fight versus the state fight. On that vein, though, I have a clarifying question for you, and using us as a little bit of an example. You obviously say you can't be everything to everyone. You need to understand your customer. We are a local brand, and we have a brick and mortar, but I also do, some
an online store,
e-commerce.
Yeah.
I'd love to grow e-commerce, but I feel like I have better opportunity growing my local brand. So part of the question is, how do you do both of them if those are both your priorities? And also, is one better or not over the other? And it's just like, for us, it's gotten into this whole rabbit hole because now with COVID, like you highlighted, not only are people shopping online more, but there's also the curbside option. So it's like now we're doing local curbside pickup, and I'm like, hey, shop online, but actually pick it up locally, and like then come visit my local store. But also you can get it shipped to your door if you like it, but your Nana lives, 4 states away. And I'm like, I want to rank for all of it, and I want content for all of it. And so I think e-commerce is a goal of ours in 2023, if I can say that fairly, because it's always been a goal. But it's like, fuck, then local just kind of keeps outperforming because people, I think, do want to.
They want the human connection. They
want to come in, talk to a human, purchase a product directly, look at it, feel it, touch it, see it. And so it's like,
absolutely,
is it a waste to even invest in?
No, e-com, because e-com, we have clients. I had a guy pay me last month to come in and do a cleanup from another marketing company. And he went from doing, no joke, he had a really good brand name and he had a really good brand following. And this was one of these like hostage situations. And we came in and in literally like a week, we fixed it all. It was a real quick $3,000 fix. He was like, that's all he had the budget for, because his business, he was only bringing in maybe 10 grand a month in online sales total. I just looked at his numbers. He did like 86,000 after we fixed everything for him. So I'm going to send another email out there and be like, I think you got the budget, bro. So
let's like jack it up and do more.
Yeah, let's get a little more aggressive now since you want to.
Well, can I ask a little bit about that split then? Is it like writing certain blog posts? Is it trying to rank for certain things? Is it having, like, I was talking to a guy and he was saying you need to have 8 pages essentially that are like CBD near me, coming from North Austin, coming from Round Rock, coming from South Austin, coming from West Austin, and all these pages are directing people to your location. And I'm
so you're talking local pages.
Well, I don't know. I'm just saying, like, how do you? What are the what you don't have to obviously give specifics because that's why people pay you. But like, what are some of the things that you're like? To see that type of jump, like what are like the top 3 things that you're like, you got to make sure you have this page, you got to do
you have to well, I mean, you have to do your keyword research. If you're a local business, you should have local pages that have a service area or at least a delivery area or like how to find this kind of thing. But also I could tell you this, like reviewing your own strains, reviewing your own products, like product reviews on your own products that you're selling actually help. Like if you have
text, like on a blog post versus a video review,
both. Cause you can repurpose a video. You can run a video. Here's the thing. You can have the video, you can run a transcript on the video. There you go.
That's a great tip. Cause we started, I put a lot of effort last quarter in our YouTube channel. And we're trying to play around and see like what videos are taking off. And we're kind of hitting a lull when we just review products. Like people are kind of like meh. But then I did a video on THCA and people were like, yeah, that's really fucking interesting. Because it's more topical, but I can see taking those product videos. And to me, hey, if 100 people watch it and I get 1 sale, I think that's a good investment.
It's a Pareto rule though. You know,
we haven't
it's an 80-20
translated or transcribed them. So that's maybe a good tip for me is to go transcribe those videos.
Transcribe those videos, put that as a blog post. Put that as a blog post and you can actually link back. It's like, hey, the most popular, and this is the thing for you, for a local business, what were the 5 most popular strains? What were the 10 most popular strains of 2022 and our predictions for 2023? Right now, it's the beginning of the year.
Needs to get ready.
Like dead ass. Like it's the beginning of the year, right? Like, and if you think about this, if I'm searching for best whatever, I don't want the best thing in 2018. I don't want the best thing from 2020. I want the best thing for 2023. 2023 news, 2023 topics are going to be trending for the entire year. And if you can get ahead of that, you automatically have a win. You know. Great. But the other thing is that for a local thing, you know, you're Austin based. If you have a delivery if you can run deliveries, like have a delivery page to where it's like, hey, this is where we can deliver to. Hey, how to get to our store kind of thing. But also like if you're doing events in Austin, if you're doing anything like, hey, come check us out at this place. If you have wholesalers or retailers that are buying off of your specific products because we have a lot of brands that come to us that wholesale, that run an e-com store, but also like white label or wholesale out to somebody else. I think having those like where to find us, where to find our products pages.
As pages or blog posts or
as a page, as a page where you can technically like, hey, you can buy our stuff at this store, but you could also shop here. You know what I mean? Like,
does it need to be a link? Like I'm trying to now get into some specifics. Like, okay, so let's say we don't wholesale our products. We like to be direct to consumer. But like, let's say I have a wholesale page. Obviously, it benefits the customer or the wholesaler to say, hey, my Restart CBD products are sold at, I'm making this up, obviously, but REI. Here's the REI near you. Can I have that page but hide that page? So it's,
you absolutely can.
Is there benefits to having it more public versus like, I know there's some more specifics of like getting you to go to Google Search Console and
it'll show some geo-relevance. It'll help you with the geo-relevance aspect because it's essentially like we work with a few delivery companies to where it's like some of them are in a big area, some of them are in a small area, and having that geo-relevance, I mean, if you want to get super nerdy, like take pictures of all your events, make sure your locations, your longitude, latitude is on your phone, upload that stuff. Because if you have, let's just say you have 2 locations in Austin or 3 locations in Austin, or you've got one in Austin, one in Pflugerville and one down in Round Rock or something, and you want people to go to those, having your longitude, latitude, geolocation on your phone when you take these photos, like your photos are going to upload with where this photo was taken. You can actually go through your phone right now and search by state, search by city, search by this. And that's because your photos actually have a geo locator on the photos to tag where the photos were taken. So if you're doing events, if you're doing any sorts of things, if let's just say you delivered or you were near UT Austin, go take some photos of your products sitting in front of UT Austin, or you have some clients that, some pictures, some people that really love it in UT Austin. Hey man, take some pictures of yourself with the photos and send them over to us. And then great. Now we can start showing up around UT Austin. We can start showing up for some of these other things. There's a lot that goes into it.
Backdate that? Like,
Yeah.
'cause I've been really good at going to events and taking pictures, but I've been a really bad content marketer on the website by not making blog posts about Texas Hemp Summit or MJ BizCon, and so to be able to take these and
you absolutely
backdate
can.
them.
Yeah, you absolutely can, because it's essentially, it's still going to index. It's
right.
And it's not like people are going to stop searching for these topics. You know what I mean? So if anything, but it also adds relevance. It also adds authority to your site. I think one of the things, the EAT, expertise, authority, and what is it, transparency or whatever.
They just updated it too.
And now it's an EAT thing or whatever. I mean, this has been around for years, and but I mean, having the authority, having the expertise, knowing, and once again, this is the whole thing. You started by being you had the brand, but guess what? Shayda built a brand for Shayda, as well as Restart. So you are your own brand as well as Restart. Not every business owner or CBD business owner wants to do what you did in regards to like, hey, I'm going to be super vulnerable, be in front of the camera and put my face to my brand and my brand to my face and be an expert in the industry. Some people just want to be the shadow operator or whatever, but you do need to have some sort of human presence on this, or hire some really damn good copywriters to write a story and create this whole thing and then have other people promote your stuff. I can tell you this, it's going to be a lot easier to be in front of your own brand. I took the way I got comfortable on camera because I did a 100 videos in 30-day challenge for myself. I was like, I need to make 100 videos in 30 days so I get comfortable speaking in front of a camera. And I did it. And my first 70 videos were absolutely god awful terrible. But you know what? You know what I did? I was able to get and sit here and not just be like, well, so, cause this is the thing. It's like content should be entertaining. For sure. Content should be, it's essentially when I think about this, I always come from coming from a background in sales. I always think about conversion, and I always think about consumer interest. Like, what does the customer want versus what do I want to talk about? There are some things that I'm gonna create and content wise where it's like, I just need to talk about this because I need to talk about it. But realistically, it's like Pareto rule, right? If I get 100 views and get one sale, listen, I know that like 80% of our onboarding, of our lead flow, of everything else is going to come from 20% of the work that I do. The other 80% of the content, the other 80% of the marketing, the other 80% of the shows, the events, the speaking stuff, whatever, it's there to show that we're doing the work and that we're being consistent. But there's always going to be those 2 or 3 podcast episodes. There's always going to be those 2 or 3 YouTube videos. There's always going to be those 2 or 3 Instagram posts, or there's 2 or 3 whatever that generate 80% of your traffic, 80% of your, there's always going to be those 2 or 3 products that just feed everything else. Because it's like, oh, I think this is great. This is like the greatest tasting thing, but nobody wants to try it. It's like I really like olives, right? Not everybody likes olives.
Yeah.
I'm like, listen, I could eat olives and I just like olive bruschetta, like not everybody likes it, but like I'm opening an olive bruschetta store. It's going to be a very limited market of people.
But like you said, if you can get 20% of people to buy into it, and you can, I appreciate that perspective though. One, I just started reading the 80-20 book like literally last night. So I'm such a big believer of like the universe speaking to you. So now I'm like, okay, Max is talking about this. This is a really great rule of thumb. And obviously it's proven. I mean, I'm only like 20 pages in and they're like, no, literally look at everything in life. It's 80-20. And obviously the split can vary, but it's what can you do? I sometimes take the approach a little bit of like throw spaghetti at the wall to see what works. But I think once you throw the spaghetti, then paying attention to
and look at the data.
These videos are more performative, or these pages are what's driving the traffic. Or I like what you were talking about too. Like, I shouldn't just look at, oh, these are the top 5 products I sold in 2022. Let me tell my customers, because they are probably searching
Right.
and wondering, what are
Right.
other people buying? And it goes
Right.
back to your whole point of that social proof. And I just feel like, yeah, there's a lot of really low hanging, tangible things that people want to overcomplicate, or not to, again, dismiss that they have the $1 million product idea. But it's like, yes, you can have a $1 million product idea, but if you're shouting into a forest and nobody's there to listen,
Right.
who's your customer?
If you're just not explaining it the right way. I think everybody needs an elevator pitch. You need like a 10-second, this is why we're great. You know what I mean? Like, this is what we do and this is why we're great kind of pitch, not a 30-minute, here, can you sit down and dedicate an hour to my PowerPoint slide demonstration for why you should buy my CBD or why you should buy my weed. Like, nobody, like, come on, man. TikTok's popular because we watch 30-second videos.
Sure.
Like, if you can't describe what you do in 30 seconds and get somebody excited in 30 seconds, you need to rethink your marketing. You know what I mean?
It's true,
Like,
though. It's true. It's like brutal honesty, but it's just like, again, I think paying attention to trends and paying attention to what is getting traction,
right.
and
Right.
always like testing it against your own brand, because you can, like you said, you can have McDonald's and you can have Burger King. Obviously, there's people who like one over the other, but
Yeah, but then you could also go to like the really good local like restaurant. And personally, I would
like a
prefer to go to the
P-Terry's.
really good. Yeah, I mean, I'd rather go to the really good local restaurant where like the owner cares and it's not just like this giant franchise.
For sure.
And there are going to be people that support the local business versus the other thing. I think having a local presence, if you can tie it into, hey, we're local, because I think in this industry, it's like there's always going to be the delineation of like, I just want the cheapest stuff I want more bang for my buck. But then you've got your educated people that are like, okay, I want to support a local business. I want to support somebody that grows here. I want to support somebody that pays taxes here, lives here, has a family here, helps give back to the community. If you can get involved with some sort of, event or some sort of thing that kicks back, like there's a really good law of reciprocity thing to where it's like the more you can actually give to your community, the more the community is going to give back to you. And I think that's just proven. This is actually why I started doing speaking things. So it's like, yeah, I can keep all this info for myself, but like, guess what? If somebody's actually listening to what this whole podcast, there's a few $1 million nuggets in this podcast episode
Absolutely.
alone. To where it's like, holy crap, we can do this, and we don't need a really big budget to do this.
Yeah.
But I'll just be honest with you, it's going to take a lot of time and effort and blood, sweat, and tears, and like you're going to want to like rethink your sanity. Like, running this agency put me back into therapy this year, so I was like, I'm losing my mind, I'm overwhelmed, and I was like, I really need to get clear. But at the same time, I was like, oh, like now I've like worked this out. It's like, why am I doing this? Okay, so yes, because essentially, like, running a business is going to test you. It's not just if you just get into it for the money. Listen, and because you're not going to see the money right away. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's a lot. Well, these guys are making millions of dollars, and they get these like
inflated ideas of what's
inflated
possible,
ideas,
and it's like,
and it is possible. But guess what? You got to do the work, and you got to build a brand, and people got to trust you because you have to be able to stand out from everybody else. And that's kind of the thing. This is what I mean. Like, I'm a super data nerd. I really love SEO. I really love marketing, but my background is sales. My background is sales and marketing. And I just took what I knew from literally door-to-door sales. I was like, okay, so how do you walk into a place, never met anybody before, never did anything before, and get them to buy? You know what I mean? Peak interest, find your interested buyers, kick out the tire kickers and the people that just want to ask questions and whatever, and find and like focus in on the people that are the most interested in what you're doing impulsively and get them to buy right now. That's my whole angle on when it comes to digital. Because the other thing is that, when it comes to this, it's like, listen, if you can't hook somebody and make somebody want to buy something really quick, you're going to lose them. If you're not, but this is the other thing too. So when it comes to how do I repurpose all this, you got to have an email list. You got to have a social list. And listen, and you got to go into your social media knowing that your social stuff is going to get shut down every once in a while. You can get it back. But I mean, we've had clients that literally, lose accounts every 2 months, and we do what we can to get them back for them. But they go into it knowing that, like, hey, we're in a space where what we're doing is technically against terms of service. And if you get flagged, you get flagged. We'll help you get it back. But just don't depend all on this. Your organic traffic, and your brand name personally to me is so much more valuable than just social media. You know what I mean? Because if people are Googling you, you got to think about this. Like if I'm Googling, Restart, right? And I'm looking to see what the best products are for Restart, and I start researching Restart CBD reviews or Restart CBD product reviews or specific strain reviews or specific things reviews, and there's no content for it. From one, if I was your competitor, I could come in and capitalize those keywords. And it's like, hey, Restart's a really cool brand. It's run by Shayda, whatever. But their products aren't as good as ours, and there's a lot of brand jacking out there. And I think that a lot of like newer companies don't realize that, like, hey, once you're getting to start out, like people are going to start brand jacking your name. They're going to start writing articles about you just to drive traffic from your brand name. It happens, and we're guilty of it too because we do it for our clients. Because
I got a lot of work to do, Max.
Yeah, well, Happy New Year. So Happy New Year. But yeah, listen, like, this is what I like talking about, and this is what we do. So, I mean, I'd love to brainstorm with you more on this in general. But essentially, it's like you should always go into this is just like, because people are going to research this. Is like if you're looking on Amazon or you're looking on anything, you're reading the reviews that people are writing about your company. You're reading the reviews about the products that you're researching before you purchase. And if you don't control that as the brand, somebody else can come in and control that for you. And it's essentially the same thing as having an agency own your digital assets. You should control your reviews about your company. You should control the reviews about your own products. You should be able to repurpose this and remarket it. And listen, not every product that you push out is going to be an absolute winner. And sometimes it's better to be honest about that, to where it's like, hey, these are good if you're not really looking to get too buzzed or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, these are really good. They taste great. They're just not going to give you the effects as these. Like, if you want really high potent stuff, this is also like how you can lead people. And I think the honesty there, a lot of people want that honesty. A lot of people want that transparency versus every product we sell is great and you should buy it all.
Like you said, it goes back to like, having 500 5-star reviews. There has to be a little bit of,
it's
your
impossible.
shit stinks somewhere.
Yeah,
somebody disagrees with you at some point.
Fucked up somewhere. Like, not everybody's gonna like you. I don't care. You know what I mean? Like, there's and this just goes with everything. It's like you can't please everyone. So a perfect 5-star review is impossible.
But yeah, so how do you go to those 20% of people who do like your products? They are advocates. What are the products they like? What is their buying patterns and habits? How frequently are they purchasing? Mm-hmm. What decisions do they, input to ultimately make that purchase? How do you as a brand build that loyalty? And like you said, you're doing all of this stuff. Not that everything you're touching or doing is going to net to that 80%, but it's part of building the totality of like how your brand is showing up, and it is a consistent game. You can't like take your foot off the gas. It's like the internet is constantly, like you said, people are going to come in and brand jack. Mm-hmm. People are flighty. I mean, I've worked in digital prior to getting into the cannabis space, and we were working for a hosting platform, and I say we again, it's just me. I was working for a hosting platform. Myself and I. But it was just remarkable. I've talked about it before. I loved watching Shark Tank because you'd see these brands get this exposure and then their website was down because they didn't have the right host. And I'm like, yep, a customer's going to go fucking type in a competitor to or alternative to, and then they're going to go get the sale because you didn't show up. So whether your site's down, whether you don't have relevant content, whether it's recent, like if somebody doesn't have something, like it's 2023, obviously there's a little bit of slack. I'll still read some December, November articles. But in end of January, February, if you don't have relevant stuff in this year on your website,
guess what? I'm going somewhere else to find the most relevant stuff. I'm not trying to read the news I'm not trying to read the news from 3 months ago. That's a whole other thing that we're starting this year too. We're going to start rolling out a media presence. We're working on
busy year.
Yeah, we're working on doing a bunch of media sites too, because we actually want to have a free press platform where cannabis companies can talk about themselves and without being throttled by big media. Needed. So, yeah,
the plight of the year, unfortunately. Obviously, it's.
I mean, look, this is why I love this industry. It's like I came from. Before I dedicated my entire life to helping cannabis companies, we worked with everybody and anybody from home builders to insurance people to beauty salons to janitorial companies to to medical, you know, like all these different things. And I was just like, most of you guys are so boring and you suck so hard. Like, I can't, like, the conversations we have. I don't want to talk about insurance anymore. I don't want to talk about your janitorial services. I don't care. Like, I'm so just like, great. You pay every month and we're getting you really good results, but this is so boring. I'm one of these people that like thrive in chaos and like thrive in a challenge. So I was like, what's the most difficult thing that we could possibly do? I was like, it's going to be cannabis and we're going to be great at it. And and it's weird. Like, everybody around in the team is like, okay, we're up for the challenge. It's not like, oh yeah, we got this and we know it's never going to change and we'll always be. It's more like, no, this is like, look, 3 months from now, the algorithm is going to change. Tomorrow, you know, I got a text message yesterday when I woke up. They're like, such and such's IG just got shut down. I was like, oh, here we go again. You know what I mean? Like, but it's part of the game. You know, and it's like, to me, it's like I thrive. I think when you get into this, go into this knowing, for one, you have to accept it's not going to be easy. It's going to be worth it though. Okay. But go into it knowing like you're going to get a couple sucker punches coming from like, I never expected to see that. And it's just like, oh, that stung, but wow. Okay. And then eventually you're like, okay, I'm ready for it. It's not going to be a big surprise anymore.
Like, how do you get back up from it? How do you keep going through it? But it for sure is a requirement to operating this industry, which is like where when I talk to people and they're like, oh, I'm just going to sell this one product and I'm going to make millions of dollars. I'm like, you could and you might.
But guess what? Like, you can't just sell one product and one product only, because
if your goal is to be a business for 6 months or a year, that's fine. But if your goal is to be a business, I mean, you're talking about like what you were navigating through. Like, this year will be our 5th year in business. I feel like I've been doing this for a decade on the lower end.
Yeah.
And it's like, we're gearing up for the 88th ledge I mentioned. And I've already, my inbox is like, Shayda, what do you think is going to happen in Texas? What's going on? And I'm like, well, I mean, do you want my soft answer or do you want the truth? Because the truth is you got to roll your sleeves up. And I don't know what the law is going to actually do, but I'm going to have to fucking fight every step of the way for the next 6 months in order to protect the current landscape, while also acknowledging that it might change and that might impact business. Like, if we lose Delta 8 and hemp drive Delta 9, yes, I think people will still want CBD, but are they going to want CBD from thousands of operators in Texas? Probably not. So are brands prepared to pivot, you know, go to the next thing, evolve? Like, it's just, you know, I mean, with the smokable hemp ban taking away manufacturing and processing in the state, are you prepared if that's your whole business? Like,
exactly.
It's just, yes, you have to be
and this
just mindful of this,
but also like not super committed to this is the only way I can do this. You know, like, you have to be able to pivot. And
it's also like you have to be comfortable with like the gray area. Like, you're talking about like this client of yours. Sometimes I want to be like, you know, ethical 100% of the time, but like, okay, using the smokable hemp ban as an example, I would love to meet a regulator from the state of Texas. Like I said, 5 years, haven't met a regulator yet. Would love to meet a regulator. So they impose these laws, but then it's like, well, who's actually regulating and actually enforcing the laws? And so it's a little bit of like, you know, am I going to get a slap on the wrist or am I going to actually get shut down? Like, what is the implications? And so I think in this industry, you have to kind of be okay saying, you know, I don't really know fully what this is going to do, but
you're kind of a pirate. You're kind of a rebel. You know, you're kind of, and you have to be cool with that. You have to be like, okay, cool. So this is not like I run the local 7-Eleven, you know, where it's like we're just selling taquitos and pizza and fountain drinks, you know, and some gasoline. Like, you've got to be okay with like, hey, I'm a bit of a pirate. I'm a bit of a rebel. I'm a bit of a, you know, the resistance.
The industry hasn't, like, I say like a lot, the boundaries are, yes, put there for a reason, but if you don't push the boundaries, then things don't change for better or worse. And so you have to kind of exist in this is the law, but I'm going to stretch the law or my interpretation of the law, which I think you can respect, understand. Being in Texas, a lot of states looking at us are like, nobody wants your synthetic cannabinoids. And I'm like, whoa. Let's talk about synthetic versus synthesized. Like, let's talk about, like, I'm excited because I'll tease it. I have a brand coming on, I think next week. I've talked about it before. I'm going to talk about it again. 99% of the CBN on the market being sold to brands like Wana and Wild being sold in regulated legal marijuana states is synthesized CBN. It is too fucking expensive to naturally take CBN from the plant to put it in these products. And so all these people are like, ew, you're selling Delta 8 and hemp drive Delta 9. I'm like, do you eat gummies with CBN in them? Because that CBN is synthesized.
Guess what? Yeah.
So it just like the conversation is, the industry's so new that the conversation hasn't been like established yet. And so I love pushing back on it because it's like, who said? Why is that? Why do you believe that?
This goes back to it too, to where there's a whole educational aspect to this as well.
For sure.
You know, in regards to, it's like, hey, you may not be comfortable promoting products, but if you're super intelligent, you can be the intelligent one to give information and debunk the myths, you know, on a lot of things. So, yeah, no, I mean, there's a lot of angles that can be worked on this, you know, and let's just put it this way. And the stuff that you can't get away with putting on your own site, you can absolutely get away with for third party. You know, you may not, and this is kind of where we're going with this whole media thing. This is kind of where we're going with this whole third party thing, because you can't have reviews on your website that say, hey, this helps me with this. But a third party site talking about your products, saying, hey, you know,
there's no liability with that because the FTC couldn't come after the third party site.
The third party is just collecting reviews, you know.
I guess it's the same thing with like Reddit. Like if someone says it on Reddit, like they're not coming after Reddit and saying,
right,
take
because
this down.
You're not putting your reviews with a medical claim on your site.
Or you're also not selling it, which I think is part of the problem. It's like the review can be there if it's not attached to the sales page.
Right.
Or if the sales isn't in the like navigation. So on a third party, yes, if there's no selling, and as long as you're not affiliate marketing off of it, I'm sure you could get away with it.
So there's a whole angle that we're working on that too, because I think that the third party aspect, from a standpoint of just social proof, of building trust, of building awareness. You know, it's kind of like you see all these websites as featured in, you know what I mean? It's like, why not do that for the little guy? Why not do that for the mom and pops? Why not do that for the local businesses that can't afford to get write-ups in Forbes or Wall Street Journal or Men's Health or some of these other things that can't afford a $10,000, $5,000 press release or whatever, but hey, we want to get seen in some websites that are featured for this. So this is kind of what we're rolling out
Authority building
backlinking, but also proof of concept relevance. And this is the thing. It's like if you can do it from a true honest standpoint, because listen, some products suck, you know, like not everybody. And this is the other thing that
some babies are ugly.
Some babies are ugly, like, you know, that. Some outfits don't work. You know what I mean? Some haircuts are bad. Like, you know, this is coming. Look, I was almost 300 pounds at the beginning of last year. Like I'm down to like 220 something. Like I was fat. Like I know that. Like, yeah, no, I feel good about myself now. But like dad bods aren't cool. Like, you know, like there's like man boobs are not attractive, at least in my mind. Because I was like, oh, look at me, I'm like a peacock.
I know you're always like your worst critic. You're like, oh fuck, I gotta do
but I'm my harshest critic. So in that sense, it's like I'm harsh as hell on myself when it comes to my own marketing and like how we do it. So it's like we apply that to what we're doing for people. And listen, and I can tell you all sorts of horror stories of people who just don't communicate well and, you know, like take 3 weeks or 4 weeks or 6 weeks to give us access to their own stuff. And then they're like, this is your fault. I'm like, you never gave us access. And you just kind of like, you don't respond. You don't show up for meetings. You don't, whatever. How is this my fault? You know what I mean? Like we set a date. I was there at the table. You ghosted me. And then
like, but I gave you $3,000.
Yeah. But then you never showed up for the date. You know what I mean? Like we were supposed to have a baby and like, you didn't deliver, you know, like, you know what I mean? Like, where's my baby? And I'm like,
it takes two to tango.
It takes two. And so, so I don't even know where I'm going. I can talk about this all day, Shayda. So
you're good. You're good. I want to wrap it up by asking you one final question because I know we've talked a lot, and I also want to be mindful for the listeners to connect with you because you are so knowledgeable. And I think this podcast, like you said, I'm hopeful that this can be, you know, a 20% that leads to 80% for you, or at least for the listeners if they're taking some of this on their own and like. like literally like take your fucking smart device and point it in a direction and make some content. Or I love your idea about even just like challenging yourself as an individual, like 100 videos, 30 days, like what can you do to improve yourself, to put yourself in a position to sell your brand. But final question, so people can work with you. Obviously you got your URL right here. I'll link it in the show notes as well. dopeseo.com. It's the easiest name to remember for these cannabis marketing people. But just like you've talked about it, but I want you to like reiterate, what are all the things that people would come to you for that you can help with, that's in your expertise, your wheelhouse? Just rattle them off, because I just want people to be like, oh, I do need help with that, or oh, that seems really interesting to me.
Okay. So we stopped building websites. I point all that over to the wonderful ladies that were on the panel with us, because I just don't want to build websites anymore. So we passed that along. But we do fix websites. We do optimize websites. We do SEO, search engine optimization. We do handle social. We can run ads compliantly. We've been doing it. Shayda, if you want to see some numbers, I will show you. Oh my God. But it's not cheap. And you know, like this is the thing. It takes
every
us
time
a lot.
I look into it, I'm like, I'd like that, but not for that price tag.
It's not,
because you're still testing it. It's like it could work, but then you're also like, I don't know.
Yeah, you go into it knowing that it may.
Yeah, I'm skittish still.
That the algorithm may change, but we're perfecting it. It's like we've got it.
That's awesome though.
It's the sexiest science we've ever seen. Like, God, I can show you some of this stuff. Yeah, we can do ads. We do content marketing. We do press releases. We do social media. We do influencer marketing. We have a list, a database of like 8,000 cannabis, green, CBD influencers that we can help you ship your products out to for product reviews and third-party testimonials and repurposable content, because that, to me, honestly, like it's the easiest way to do social proof. And if you actually have a list of people that already want to try your products, and sometimes we'll do it for free or do it for a minimal amount, and you can be like, hey, such and such reviewed our product, check this out. We have that. And then, I mean, we haven't even gone into like ADA compliance. We haven't even gone into like chat messaging. We haven't even gone into like SMS. We haven't even gone into like email marketing. We do all that. And then we do dev work, and we make sure that your site works and your secure stuff works and that whatever. And we build funnels, and we make sure that your website stays up and running and optimized and showing up in your listings. And we do local listings and search for, and local optimization as well as e-commerce optimization as well. So we're kind of like a full stack digital marketing agency just for this industry. We don't take on any clients outside of this space anymore. We just want to focus in, help this industry grow, help it do it compliantly, and just keep the industry in a good standing online. Because most people do it themselves, or they hire somebody overseas, or they hire some freelancer, or they get their kid to do it, or their nephew, or their best friend, and whatever. And I've seen some nightmare stuff that I'm just like, ooh, this is not cool. And then some other stuff to where it's like, hey, sometimes you just need a professional to come in. Sometimes you just need a really good mechanic that knows how to work on your car to come in and fix the ding, 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 sound that nobody else can figure out. Odds are we've seen it. Odds are we've fixed it. Odds are we've helped figure it out and make it better. So, whether it's a one-time fix or like an ongoing service, we prefer the ongoing services because we like to grow with people as they grow. But we have done some really phenomenal, like one-time quick fix kind of deals for people that all of a sudden they go from making 10 grand to 80 grand because you just hired somebody that knows what the hell they're doing to come in and take a look and clean it up and make it work better. So that's us.
Just a short list of really imperative things that I hope the listeners don't take lightly as they are building and growing and entering into the cannabis, hemp, CBD space and market. And obviously you are just so knowledgeable. I know that I walked away with a lot of immediate tasks that I need to go execute right now. So thank you for
You're
that.
welcome.
Super enlightening. Certainly have to have you back on the podcast, talk about the and also things that you mentioned. But thank you to all the listeners who are tuning into this episode. Like I said, go check out Max and his team at dopeseo.com. Welcome to 2023.
Absolutely.
It's going to be a very exciting time. As mentioned in the episode, the 88th Ledge session is kicking off officially now that we're in January here in Texas, and certainly more to come. I'm launching some resources that can help guide Texans who are looking to navigate that a little bit better. And we'll be back next week with a brand new episode of the To Be Blunt podcast.
And if you are in Texas, go vote.
Amen.